What, so the US was supplying Japan with arms, steel, aviation fuel, and tooling in World War II? Weren't they enemies?
Yes, well, sort of. It's complicated. Let's break it down. From 1911 onwards, the US and Japan had an agreement to basically trade as equals. This effectively meant that the US couldn't treat Japan as an unequal partner the way, for example, many imperial nations had treated Asian nations up to that point.
And this freedom to trade continued into the 1930s. Japan had limited natural resources, and in some cases, limited technical expertise, so relied heavily on the USA for provision of steel, aviation fuel, and machines and tooling for manufacturing. Much of these resources were used for building the Japanese war machine.
US companies also sold fighter planes in limited numbers to Japan as late as 1938, including 20 Seversky 2PA B-3s, which were used by the Japanese Navy in operations against China. But it's important to note it was not the US government making the sale directly or sanctioning the sale, although policy at the time still tolerated these deals.
By 1938, the United States supplied nearly 44% of Japan's imports, including copper, automobiles and parts, machinery, engines, oil, iron and steel, all potential war materials.
But when Japan attacked China in 1937, this situation began to change. Americans increasingly became aware of Japan's atrocities. Less morally concerned businessmen were worried by the thought of a China controlled by Japan. They feared this would mean neither nation would be as dependent on importing from the US as they had been previously.
In July 1938, US Secretary of State Cordell Hull notified aircraft manufacturers that the government was strongly opposed to the sale of aeroplanes and related material to nations using those same aeroplanes to attack civilian populations, a moral embargo directly targeting Japan. It proved, by some reckonings, 95% effective. But should they go further and cut off belligerent Japan's access to US tooling, steel and aviation fuel? That question became an ongoing debate.
In July 1940, Congress approved legislation to prohibit the export of military components, machinery, tools, material, or supplies to Japan. Steel, scrap, and iron exports were restricted in the same month. Then, effective August 1st, 1941, the US announced further bans, ending the export of oil products, including motor fuel and aviation fuel, to what it termed aggressor countries.
So what was the right thing to do? At first glance, the obvious answer would be, yes, they should restrict these things. You shouldn't supply a belligerent nation with materials it could turn to use in harming other countries. But because Japan anticipated a shortage of resources, these same export controls pushed it to pursue more aggressive territorial expansion, looking to take larger chunks of China and Southeast Asia in an effort to ensure resource security. So, did the US supply Japan with arms during World War II?
Well, mostly indirectly, and only for a short while. As Japan became more belligerent, the US increasingly restricted all trade that could be put to nefarious use. But did they go too far? Would a lighter touch have made for a less aggressive Japan? It's hard to say. What would you have done if you had been in charge in the late 1930s? Let us know below.